more of Jocelyn's gaming podcasts, visit jossplays.com. And to find many more podcasts with Ridiculous Hat, follow @RidiculousHat on Twitter. Every episode of TAC is made possible thanks to our legendary patrons over at patreon.com/TAC.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Legendary.
You face Jaraxxus. You smell like a leper gnome. I knew it. So hot.
A podcast about Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. This is The Angry Chicken.
Muted. This is going great already. Hello, everyone, and welcome
Perfect.
to the Angry
Seamless.
Chicken. Oh, so seamless. Yeah. I'm Joce, and I'm joined by Ridiculous Hat. Garrett is away this week, which is why my hosting abilities are being put to the test. I've already failed, so it's good. It's good. Like, you know, you get all the screw ups out of the way at the beginning, and then the rest of the show is seamless.
We're being given the opportunity to rise to the occasion. Also, both of us it's the middle of the work week. We normally record on Monday where we have some of that built up energy from the weekend. Wednesday, commuting with the humidity we're dealing with in our part of the country, our brains are melting out of our ears, and we've been spending all the energy we have thinking about these new cards. So it's gonna be loose today. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna keep it loose.
All right, we're keeping it loose. I love it. And the reason why we decided to record a little bit later this week is because we knew the new card reveals were going to start on the 20th. So we're like, if we record on the 19th, we're going to have nothing to say. Like, I don't want to try to guess what all the cards are going to be based on their little, like, spoilery thumbnails. So that would have been a terrible, terrible episode. So we waited, and here we are. And we do have some new cards to talk about, including just one that I think is just going to be the only thing that I play for the entirety of the next expansion. I'm really excited to get into all of this. But before we do, we've got some announcements, we've got some news, but we'll get to the cards, guys. Don't worry. So if you're as excited as I am about the new expansion coming in August, we have 5 United and Stormwind Standard Pre-Purchase Bundles to give away. So we've added new options to the Gleam as well. So now if you go and follow Ridiculous Hat on Twitter,
That's me.
that is you, then you can get some more entries as well as some Patreon options as well. So go and check out the giveaway. It is open right now, and it's going to close before our next episode. So it's going to close on July 25th, and we're going to announce our winners on July 26th. So thank you so much to Blizzard for providing us with those codes. Again, we have 5 United and Stormwind Standard pre-purchase bundles to give away. You can go to bit.ly/mailboxchicken. I don't know why Garrett made that the link, but he did. So again,
Mailbox chicken.
Mailbox chicken.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. So again, that's bit.ly/mailbox chicken if you want to enter the giveaway, but it's over on Gleam. You guys, you're old hat by now, right? Like, you've done this so many times.
It's with the amount of back pain I am suffering from retail this week, I feel like old hat.
Oh, because of the mailbox dancer. Tall man in the chat room gets it.
Oh.
Okay, now I'm picturing a chicken dancing on a mailbox, and yeah, that's actually really good.
I'm entertained.
Yeah, GG Garrett, GG.
Yeah. And also, it's a very memorable URL. Like, you're going to hear that and you're going to be like, mailbox chicken. But then when you go to type in the URL, you'll be like, I know what this is. Because why else would I remember mailbox chicken? Those aren't words that go together.
No! It's like chicken in a mailbox, maybe? But then, like, who's mailing chicken? Anyways. Again, guys, go and check out the giveaway. There's lots of ways to enter. You're probably already doing most of them, so go get yourselves a bundle. And we also wanted to give a thank you to our patrons over at patreon.com/tac. You guys are the ones who are supporting us. We love you. If you become a TAC patron, you get access to our Discord and lots of other stuff. We're actually past the goal for a taco, so we're going to be doing a taco sometime soon. It's a little bit weird because of summer stuff, but we're going to try to get a taco going sometime in the very, very near future, so stay tuned for that. Some new patrons we wanted to thank this week are Martin VH, Ben K, Mockingbird, Wadio? What?
I was thinking Wadeo.
Oh, Wadeo?
It could be
Okay.
Wadeo.
That's sassy. Wadeo.
I was, yeah. I don't know.
And Captain Purple as well for updating his pledge. So thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Again, you can go over to patreon.com/tack if you would also like to do so. Let's just get right into the news, Hat, because I mean, we got a lot of show this week.
Hello?
You're,
It's me.
yeah.
Just quickly, did you get my message?
Yep.
Oh,
Hello, brother.
So nailing these transitions. It's my bad for not making sure you could hear what was going on.
It's okay. It's fine. We'll fix it in
so
post.
good.
It'll be seamless.
Exactly.
It's fine.
We're gonna
No
do
one
so
has
much
to
editing.
know. No, it's okay. You don't have to do any editing except on the video part, and then you can decide how much you care about that. It's okay. We're keeping it loose. We're keeping it
Right,
loose.
we're keeping it loose. My bad. So the nerfs that we were speculating about last episode have hit. We got 3 cards, 2 priests and 1 druid who were hit with nerfs, Apotheosis, Renew, and I can't even remember the sound I made last episode, so I'm not even gonna try.
Wait, what? I got it right here. It's this one.
Oh, I think Discord cut it off. Oh, we're just so good at
Wait.
the audio stuff today.
I have to. Okay, hold on. My noise suppression was on, and that was a gibberling noise.
It was a noise, so it was suppressed. It makes sense.
again.
There we go. Okay, so yes, the got hit with a nerf as well. Pretty much everything we were kind of expecting, right, Hat? Like, we didn't really see anything too crazy. Apotheosis had some stats taken away from its buff. Renew was bumped up a mana, and so was as well.
Yes, I don't know how we forgot that sound.
Right?
But yes, we definitely expected to stop being a 1-mana card, because that was kind of just all we were doing for a year. And as we might have seen on ladder, you don't need that card for druid to be good this week. I've been playing some different tokeny druid lists, and we still do just fine.
Yeah, okay, so I've been
Oh.
seeing a lot of druid too, and I wasn't sure if that was because of the Fire Festival quest stuff, or if that was just like nobody cares that Gibberling got nerfed.
So there is a deck builder named Jambre who is very
Yes.
good at Hearthstone, and who builds decks that people aren't always able to replicate his success. That's the term I'm going to use. That sometimes they can't really always replicate his success. The mean way to say it would be to call this decks bait, but that's not what I said, and that's not what I'm going to say.
but also,
But he made a deck that recently, there was a Jambre Druid before the nerfs that like had Umbral Owl and Living Seed and was built on just kind of churning through the deck and had much heavier in draw. He built a different deck. It's basically like Ash's old school token druid with Glowfly Swarm, except instead of Mount Seller, you have Lady Anacondra, and you go Lady Anacondra, Solar Eclipse for 0, Germination for 2, and you make 3 total Lady Anacondras. You reduce all your nature spells by 6, and then you draw your deck with a 0-mana Nourish and 0-mana Fungal Fortune, because there are no other minions in the deck. And then you play 2 to 3 Arbor Ups in the same turn, and then you kill them, and you can do this as early as turn 4. And
interesting.
it's not reliable, but boy, is it flashy, and it's kind of the talk of the town around Legend this week. And so it's a fun deck for the end of the expansion.
I had somebody play that against me today when I was going through all of my Fire Festival stuff this afternoon, because I've just been having so much fun over on the Battleground side, and I hit that duels wall where it was like, play 3 duels games, and I was like, no, you can't make me. I will not. But eventually I was like, I have to, otherwise I won't get the rest of the quest. So I went and played duels, and then I went back onto ladder, and yeah, so many druids, and I saw Lady Anacondra, and I was like, what are you trying to do? But I was working on my hunter quest, so I was just face huntering, and I'm like, whatever you were trying to do, I'm pushing my button, and you can't do it now. Bye-bye.
Yeah. You're basically like the kid who doesn't read any of the readings but shows up and aces the final. Like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't care. I'm just going to do what I always do and it'll be good enough. And it was.
It was. And I felt like a bad person. I was like, you seem like you're trying to have fun. And I'm coming in here with Kolkar lands. And I'm sorry about that.
Okay. You had your own fun. It's okay. They get to do some stuff and you get to hunt them. It's fine.
It's true.
It's okay. And I'm glad that you were working on this quest. Though, of course, we should note that players have until the 27th to finish their quest. You don't have to knock them out all in one day like you try to do, because that shaman quest is 10 shaman games. Takes a while.
At
trying
least
to do that
it's
all
not
in one
10
day.
wins.
Yeah.
But like the entire ladder that I faced today was either shamans or druids. I did have a couple of games against demon hunters, but like the vast majority of my games were shamans and druids. And I'm like, is everybody doing these quests or is there something I don't know?
It's Druid is kind of the talk of the town right now, and also a lot of the decks that went wide with Druid lost to Condemns, which are not really seeing as much play anymore since they nerfed the crap out of Priest. So the more interesting Druid-y decks are seeing some more play towards the end of the expansion. They're fun, they're different, they have really goofy high rolls, and Priest is seeing a pretty dramatic drop in play rate. It's actually still doing well at high legend, because I think the field got more favorable for it because people put away their Doomhammers and said, oh, I don't have to play all this anti-Priest stuff anymore. So even though the deck got worse, and it really did get worse, and they could have been softer with these nerfs they wanted to, Renew could have restored more health, and Apotheosis could have been like +1/+3 instead of +1/+2. But they want people to do other things in Priest, and these changes say, hey, we're giving you a bunch of new Priest stuff to do, which we'll talk about some of it, and we haven't even seen the Shadow Priest stuff yet outside of Benedictus. But there's a very clear other thing that Priest can do in the very near future. They want us to do something else. They want us to play with some different cards. So they took these down a peg. Renew still decent. Apotheosis I'm less sure on. And that changed what you do with Samuro, and it makes the decks look more interesting. We won't just be doing the same thing going into the next expansion. I'm pretty sure of that.
Well, yeah, that was one of the dev comments about Renew in the blog post, and we have the link in our show notes to the blog post about all the nerfs if you guys haven't seen it yet. But that was one of the things that was actually mentioned with the Renew change, is that Priest identity is going to look different in future expansions. But I mean, it's not good right now, so that's kind of part of why we saw the Renew change. So they did very much confirm that whatever Priest we get going forward is not going to look kind of the same as what we've been seeing so far.
Yes. And Renew and Apotheosis are both in the same set, Ashes of Outland, which came out approximately one pandemic ago. So It's been in Standard for a while. And I think maybe Priest can do something else after 15 months of that. Sethlic Veilweaver also in that set. That was a good set for Priest, as it turns out. Oh, Soul Mirror also in that set. That was a very good Priest set. That was a very good Priest set. Yeah.
I guess
So-
your feelings on that set probably have a lot to do with how you feel about Priest and Demon Hunter.
I really like that set because I got to play a lot of Enrage Warrior, which is Bay. And I did enjoy Demon Hunter at the time, but Enrage Warrior was what I wanted to do. But yes, if you didn't like a lot of the priesty things that were going on there, and of course, you know, I mean, the first couple weeks of Demon Hunter, I think we can all agree it was troubled.
It was troubled.
troubled
I like that. It was troubling times.
Yes. There was a lot going on back then, both inside and outside the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to give a shout out to Coin Concede that had their 300th episode. And the reason that it is in our news section instead of just me being like, yeah, Coin Concede, woo, at the beginning of the show is because you guys got a Ben Lee interview with a card reveal.
So I don't know how any of this happened. I'd been idly talking to the PR folks who are super duper nice, by the way. And Fabio and Chris, you're great. And they know that. I hope they know that. And of course, the whole PR team and Cynthia is really good too, and all that. But we were idly ruminating at the beginning of the year, like, hey, would Ben want to come on? And it's like, yeah, we can talk about it. And then we're like, hey, episode 300 is in 3 months. Would he want to come on? Yeah, we can talk about it. We confirmed it Monday. And then on
I was
Wednesday,
gonna say, we talked like last week early on, and you were like, I don't even know what we're gonna do. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a milestone episode.
Exactly.
So you weren't lying to me then. You legit did not know at the beginning of last week what was going on.
We were working on it. We had the idea that we were aiming for the Bentley interview 2 months before, but we hadn't gotten confirmation, and it was the end of the week. And so I was really hoping that it was going to happen, but I didn't want to say it because if you plan for something like that and then the date slips, you got to come up with something else. So we didn't have any confirmation. We get confirmation of that on Monday, nailed on some time in his schedule. But on Wednesday at 5 o'clock, when the show was on Thursday, I get an email at work like, hey, do you have more time tomorrow? Ben wants the show to go longer so he can give you a card. No, Ben, I'm sorry. I'm all booked up. Like,
right? Like, who says no to that email?
It was completely out of nowhere. We had no idea. Incredibly humbling. Super, super great. By the way, we should probably mention, for those of you who don't listen to Coin Concede, that's my show. That's my other show. What am I? Yeah, I'm on that. That's why.
Who doesn't know that that's your other show? I mean, you say it at the end of the podcast every week. Oh, that's why
I don't know if everybody gets all the way there.
Yeah, nobody gets all the way to the end of a podcast.
Might as well clarify. Anyways, it was dope. Enjoyed it, and so we're just really honored that we got to talk with Bentley, and he's also seems like a good boss and a good game director and a nice guy, and he was very forthcoming with information. It was cool. So yeah, good episode 300. Big fan. We'll do it again in 300 more episodes.
So yeah, we have the link to the VOD if you guys didn't see it, as well as a link to the Out of Cards article that kind of summarizes everything. But there were some points other than just the touch of the Nathrazim, which was your card reveal. We're going to talk about cards again a little bit later in the episode. But there were some kind of like key moments or like topics that I just wanted to, get your thoughts on when you don't have Ben on the air as well. Let's just ruminate
we can
on a couple things.
Together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I've decided that, first of all, he has confirmed that I am right about the next expansion, that it's going to be an Alliance versus Horde battleground. And because he called it Classic WoW in Hearthstone, makes me think that, yeah, we're looking at the whole AV thing. Like, yeah, that's what's happening.
Joce and third expansion theme guesses name a more iconic duo.
Right? So, yeah, he did say some fan theories about the third expansion of the year are very close. I'm taking that to be directed right at me, of course. And, yeah, I like the kind of idea of Classic WoW and Hearthstone. It's kind of obvious that that's what they've been going for with their Barons, Horde, and then Stormwind Alliance theming. It's kind of really on point with what's going on in Warcraft right now, although Classic WoW has moved on to the Burning Crusade expansion. But I mean, like, Classic WoW is a thing now, and it's got a lot of iconic characters, so I can see why they would want to do some classic WoW-y Hearthstone stuff. So I think they've done a pretty good job. I mean, they're kind of like walking that line between like recreating Warcraft in a card game, which they already did. It was made of paper. And then, like trying to bring a Hearthstone spin to it, and also like including some community memes, like the mailbox dancer and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think they've done a really good job of capturing WoW, but keeping it Hearthstone. So I've been happy with what I've seen so far in terms of like overarching theme.
Yep. It's I was never an old school WoW player, but I was immersed pretty deep in the I played a lot of Warcraft 3. And I'm vaguely aware of the lore, and I've, researched a lot of the stuff because I did get into WoW more recently in the retail side. And it feels like a pretty authentic love letter to the original state of the game.
Absolutely. They also talked a little bit about researching more about AI and machine learning and stuff for Hearthstone, which I think is probably the biggest area that's kind of lacking right now for either people who want to practice or people who like solo content, right? Like, there's a lot of solo content that isn't as challenging necessarily as they might want it to be, or like as players might want it to be. So, I mean, I think basically it was kind of twofold. Like, first and foremost, it was like making better AI for players to experience, but also on the back end of stuff as well, like giving them more abilities to like test and find bugs and all that kind of stuff. Like, I thought that was a really interesting part of the conversation. It was just about what they're doing with AI and machine learning in Hearthstone.
Yeah, and I didn't expect to think of like testing combos with machine learning, but that's really cool. Also, by the way, since you mentioned it, Have you done Book of Heroes Gul'dan yet? It just came out like yesterday.
No, I'm okay. So I have been woefully behind on my Book of Heroes. So I just finished Book of Heroes Rexar. I am very, 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 very behind.
Skip to Gul'dan. It just came out. I'm not going to spoil it. There are some really, really clever twists in the middle, and the format and structure of this Book of Heroes really blew me away. I was actually surprised by how much I enjoyed it, and not going to spoil it. Definitely worth your time in jumping ahead. I haven't done most of them, but I did Gul'dan in a friend's recommendation. I finished it in one sitting. It was really, really great.
I think that they've done a really good job with the Book of Heroes, because again, this is another kind of piece of the Warcraft puzzle when it comes to Hearthstone, because they're telling the lore of the main Hearthstone heroes, and all of that lore is stuff that people will have like played through. If you've played World of Warcraft, you'll be familiar with it. It's all part of WoW's story. So, and some obviously not just World of Warcraft, but also like you mentioned, the Warcraft 3 stuff and everything else. So it's very much like bringing those stories and those characters to a Hearthstone audience. And I think they've done a really good job. And like, as I haven't done the Gul'dan one yet, but the ones that I've played so far have done a great job of saying like, here's this big complicated story that took WoW years to tell, and we're gonna tell you in like 5 or 6 voice lines per like Hearthstone level, or like per Hearthstone match, and it was so good, man. It's so good.
It's I think it's a tall order of what they have to do with the amount of information, the amount of time they have. But the joy that I felt for Gul'dan was not lore based; it was structure based. The way they did it was clever and cool, so that's why I'm recommending it. The lore is there, but it's clever and cool. And there will be a point that you hit right in the middle of it. I think it's the 4th battle. I expect you to be like, "Whoa, this is awesome."
Okay. Well, I guess that's what I'm doing after the show tonight then. I didn't even realize. So I played the first Book of Heroes when it very first came out, and then I started the Rexar book, and then I guess because I was partway through when I stopped playing it, it jumped me right back into the Rexar story. I didn't even realize you could like skip ahead. I thought you had to like do every single one.
Oh, no.
Like, in order. I was like, oh, I'm so far away from Gul'dan.
I think I just did Jaina and then did Gul'dan yesterday. I haven't done.
So you're not doing that. Okay, I felt like such a bad Hearthstone player because I wasn't like up to date on all my single player content, and I'm just like, I'm having too much fun on like the multiplayer or competitive or whatever side of things, like whatever you want to name it. That I haven't played a lot of single player stuff. I've just been, battlegroundsing and playing constructed and having a great time, because normally I would spend my time in single player when either my internet connection's really bad, but it's not like we've been going anywhere for 18 months. So like, I'm never out of cell range or off of Wi-Fi. And then also, I usually play single player when there's a lull in the other content. But with the introduction of Battlegrounds and then mini expansions as well, it's like, there's never a lull. It's like I'm playing constructed because there's a new expansion, and then I might go over to Battlegrounds for a bit, but then there's a mini expansion, and then I might do a little bit more Battlegrounds, and I'm like, I need more hours in my day because Hearthstone is so good.
Yeah, there's way too much to do in the client.
Mm-hmm.
I am behind on both the heroes and the mercenary side. I only went in for this one because it was actively recommended to me by multiple people, and I'm glad they did because it was worth it. And no spoilers for the chat.
Okay.
No spoilers. And no spoilers for you, because I want you to just experience it organically. But yes, strongly recommended. But yeah, I agree with you that that's what I used to do with single player. And there was a point where Dalaran Heist, I played Dalaran Heist as like my primary game mode for like a week.
Oh, really?
And I like roguelikes. I know this is surprising to anyone that has talked to me ever, but it was very much a Slay the Spire feel in Hearthstone, and I loved it, and I play a ton of it, and I still play it every so often.
Very, very cool. One other thing that they talked about in your interview was, so I guess you talked about, not just they, you.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
I'm the they.
It was just the challenges of developing for a community as wide and varied as Hearthstone's player base. Talking about just the general size of Hearthstone's player base, and with Battlegrounds having like pulling numbers that would put it in the top 3 on Steam every day. And that's just Battlegrounds alone, let alone all the other game modes and all the other communities. And even that there's variations between like players within like the same regions, and like even changes between countries and regions. Like there's a lot of different ideas and attitudes and play styles and everything else that it can be quite challenging. And I mean, I kind of had this like little feeling / thought of like, well, you did that to yourself when you added 18 game modes. So like, of course, everyone's going to play the game differently when you give them so many ways to play.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, and I'm glad there are so many options as well, and we can always go back to these, like they're just in the game forever. But yeah, it's the idea of this is something the consensus point I really love that he brought up. I liked that he was so clear that not everyone thinks about things the same way.
Yeah,
I really think that's very important to bring up, because this is something I've mostly seen in the wild discourse when people talk about like, this is obviously the way to fix wild. There's no obvious way to fix it, because what's fixed for one person is broken for another.
Well, and he brought up the idea of Priest and that play style, and saying that there's a lot of people right now that enjoy how Priest plays. So is it fair to tell them that the way they're playing Hearthstone is wrong, or that they're not allowed to do that anymore? Or, you know, like, and I think in some cases there are, you know, I guess play styles or metas or decks that are very toxic for the game, and that really don't like, they're just, no one's having fun, and it's not driving the meta in a way that they want, and those things need to get changed. But I think when you're talking just about a specific kind of play style, then that starts to get a little bit broad and a little bit like a slippery slope. Like, if we don't let Priest do this anymore, then can nobody do this? Is it just Priest that we hate? Like, what's really going on here? And again, back to the consensus point, is that like the people who say, you know, like hashtag delete Priest might only be this like teeny tiny little group of Reddit people. And really there's like all of these other people out there playing Priest and having a great time that we never necessarily see, right? So it's gotta be really hard. And I liked that Ben took the time to kind of talk about how difficult it was to gauge what's best for the game and what is best for the majority of players, and you know, all those kinds of ideas of finding consensus in a game with just such a huge and diverse fan base.
I think that if you are a Priest fan on social media the past month and a half, it's been kind of rough. It's like, it's so strange. It must be so disconcerting that you get to either choose between your class being a dumpster fire or people hating you, and you can never like have a good deck and also get away with it without people like spitting on you in public.
Hat, have you been spitting on people?
No, I'm not. I'm not the spitter or the spittee, but like, it's just the idea of the amount of negative vitriol that has been poured out towards this particular class and people who play it has been so overwhelmingly exhausting for the past end of this entire expansion cycle. I can't imagine what it's like for people that really enjoy the Priest playstyle and want it to be good, and then for people to, you know, celebrate how much worse it got with the nerfs. It's so emotionally charged when, you know, you talked about playing Hunter in the show. No one's like, oh, it's Elite Hunter. It's like, no, just Steady Shot exists. It's just how it is.
It's so true. I mean, and obviously I think there's been a lot, like there's always that class, right? But for whatever reason, Priest seems to just get hate on so much harder. And I mean, I remember the days back in my day when there was like, you know, Broad was still there and Priest was unplayable, like so unplayable to the point that Youngwoo literally took it upon himself to start hashtag Unicorn Priest. And I don't just remember that because there's unicorn in the name. Like, I remember the internet going on like a crusade to find a playable Priest deck. And it didn't happen. It did not exist.
Nope. And there was like the Reddit was up in arms at the time about Priest being too bad.
Yes!
About Priest not being good enough, because Priest was in a poor spot. And then the first card they revealed from One Night in Karazhan was Purify, and people lost their damn
I
mind.
remember that.
People
It was
went
like,
crazy.
they didn't even want to see the rest of the set. They were like, no, you fix priest and you do it now. And how dare you even show us that card?
And Priest of the Feast
rage
was
is
also
real.
in the same set and
Yeah.
was super good, but Purify was first. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
They did not read that room well. But yeah, so my point is that, like we go through each class in Hearthstone kind of goes through this cycle of good to bad. And, there's always going to be a class that is best. There's always going to be a class that's getting a lot of hate and needs nerfs and people hate playing against it. And, for me, it was Warlock there for a while when Cube was a thing. There's always going to be something that people don't like playing against. And I'm not even going to bring up the thing I really don't like playing against because you guys are sick of hearing me talk about that. But there's always something. And I think that there are also the flip side of that coin is that there's people who actually enjoy playing it because otherwise they wouldn't be playing it. So, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting part of the conversation.
Yep, I found it fascinating. Really, the way he looks at the game shows it's someone who cares a lot and is invested a lot, but also isn't interested in being right all the time. He was very clear about how his job is to be the umbrella/protector for his team, make sure they're taken care of, make sure they're set up to succeed. And there were a couple of points where he talked about balance meetings, like sometimes he'd sit in, sometimes he felt strongly about something, they changed it, and then he said, sometimes I feel strongly about something and the team feels strongly the other way and they convince me. Love that idea. It's because it's not... he doesn't do a lot of these interviews because he wants his team to take the spotlight. And speaking as someone that's been in management for a long time, the best thing to do to be successful, find your rock stars, set them up for success, get out of the way.
Yeah.
Let them have the credit and you
key.
take the blame.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. Yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was just the idea around players and their playtime and how he was saying that they don't expect people to play every single day forever, but that whenever they decide to come back, whether that's a couple days later, weeks later, months later, expansions later, they want new fun stuff to be waiting for those players when they come back. And so I thought that was a really interesting kind of insight into a lot of the changes that they've made with daily quests and weekly quests and the Tavern Pass reward stuff and just kind of all the things that they've put in there, as well as some of the events. There does seem to be something that's always popping up and being like, hey, this thing is new. Hey, did you know Gul'dan came out today? Hey, guess what? There's a fire festival going on. Have you tried winning 5 BGs? How about winning 5 games in standard? There's always something giving me a little bit of direction now in Hearthstone and rewarding me for, following their hints, but also rewarding me for just playing the way I want. I played Battlegrounds exclusively for 3 weeks and I'm I didn't have any quests for it, but it didn't even matter because I was having fun and still, dinging along that reward track. So I think the idea of having something new available to somebody when they log in every time, when they come back to the game, whether, like I said, it's hours, days, weeks, months, expansions, then I think, that's a really interesting design philosophy, and I think it's working for me, at least.
Yeah, you want the balance of guidance and flexibility, right? You want to be able to clear your quest in Tavern Brawl if you want to, but if you're not sure what to do and the game tells you, you want to be like, okay, that sounds fun. And Battlegrounds in particular, there is no point where you log in and then can't do Battlegrounds because of monetary reasons. No matter what you've been doing, Battlegrounds is really, really accessible. And they're working on the constructed side. They're clearly not there yet. Tavern Brawl is available, the solo stuff. They're making strides here, and it's clear that it's a focus of the team because it's gotten better every time they try to do something.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is kind of related, not related, but I thought it was really cool because this is something that I've kind of struggled with as somebody who applies for jobs quite often, as someone who's been working exclusively on contracts since she graduated university some number of years ago. We're not going to talk about it. Is that, the idea that leading raids in WoW helped Ben become a better leader and talking to different types of people, because this is kind of so I'm a WoW raid leader, and this is the kind of thing that I always like. Some people say like, absolutely put it on a resume. And other people are like, no, don't let them know how many hours you sink into Warcraft. And I think it does really depend on the job. But I love that Ben just came out and was like, yeah, raid leading in WoW is a legit skill. Like, let's go.
He described himself as forged in molten core as opposed to forged in the Barrens. And back in the day, keeping 40 people online when internet connections were not at all up to snuff was a challenge in and of itself. And yeah, so Joss, you may not know this. I think I've mentioned I unsubbed from WoW in the Uldir tier in BFA, right? I enjoyed Legion a lot, but I didn't have the time commitment for it. Other stuff happened in life, and WoW is very time consuming. Just like, I'm just not playing it right now, so I'll unsub. I am still to this day an officer in a WoW guild for interpersonal management only because of my work experience. That when they have an HR problem equivalent, when they need help figuring out how to coach people or talk to them, or when they need help figuring out how to fire someone, because you need to do that sometimes. And a lot of raid leaders just don't have that skill set. I'm there to help. And it doesn't come up very much anymore, and they're in a good spot now. But it's absolutely just management. It is 100% just management. And if you're bad at it, it is very obvious because your top raiders leave and you're left with the bottom. And also there are people with abrasive management styles. And people are like, I don't want to be in this guild at all. Whereas other times, there are really good raid leaders who are coaches and guides. But then when you mess something up, they're like, yo, you messed this up. Direct, honest communication. And they tell people. And if someone keeps messing it up, they're like, yo, you're holding back the raid. You got to go. That's all it is. But it's simple, but it's really not easy. And I'm not surprised at all that someone of Ben's character built up that skill there and is able to leverage it in the real world.
Absolutely. I have my Joss mom voice. That's what they call it, is that like it's all fun and games and happy and jokey until, we do too many attempts. And then all of a sudden I get my Joss mom voice. And yeah, there's even there's an emote in my Twitch channel for it too. Joss mom. So yeah,
I'm looking for this emote now. We're on your channel right now.
Yeah,
I'm looking for it.
It's Joss no. Yeah, this is great. This is great audio. So yeah, that was kind of the
audio listeners. It's a very imposing emote.
It is very much so. So I'm pointing right at you and saying no. So it's yeah, that was kind of what I thought my highlights were out of your 300th episode on Coin Concede. So again, congratulations on that episode. Congratulations on the card reveal and the interview. It was great. So if you guys missed it, we do have a link to the VOD. You guys can check it out, or there is also a link to the out of cards kind of summary. There's a lot more in the interview that we didn't cover today. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Ben talked about a lot of things. So go and listen to it. It was really, really great. We also had another Ixar AMA. I think this is number 21 at this point. So thanks again to Out of Cards for actually numbering them, because it's so helpful now. But yeah, I think he's back. He was away for a little bit. He's back now. He's doing these AMAs again. So there's some stuff that's a little bit repetitive because like he has the patience of a saint with this community. Sometimes it's like, this is my 21st AMA and you're asking me the same questions because you don't want to go back a week. Okay, I can type this out again, no problem. But yeah, so we did have another one. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and it also coming off of the conversation about, being social and WoW and raid leading and everything else, I thought it was really interesting that Ixar, and I guess he wasn't in a leadership position at the launch of Hearthstone, but he thinks the biggest missed opportunity with Hearthstone was launching without social systems, which is something I feel like we've been asking for since day one, of like not just a chat to other people, but just like ways to do stuff, like do things with my friends, organize games, have guilds and ongoing chats and all the things that WoW has, but then also I want to play a card game instead of stand around in Orgrimmar.
Yeah, or a class hall or something.
Yeah.
Or a garrison. Nobody wants to stand in a garrison.
Yeah, nobody. Oh yeah. Man, those things were so sad. Garrisons are terrible. But yeah, so I mean, at least they're, I was gonna say at least they know, at least they are acknowledging it. I don't know. I am not holding out any hope, because something like adding social systems and all that kind of stuff, like that's getting onto the level of, Hearthstone 2.0. Like, that's kind of like next level client
infrastructure upgrade level stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
It is a big deal. And like Ben said in the interview, you're basically saying, let's repair and change this freight train while it's moving. It's very challenging to do without bringing the whole thing down, and you can't do that. So slow and steady.
Exactly. And Dean also talked about how the team has talked about removing legendary cards from Discover and other random card generation effects. And he thinks the real answer is to make less random generation and Discover cards, which I agree with, because I feel like we've been talking about this kind of since the beginning of Hearthstone, but just because a card has an orange gem doesn't necessarily mean it's the best card in the game. And I think that there's a lot of cards that have broken the game in the past, and even, the present, that don't have that fancy orange gem. Like, we literally just talked about nerfs to Apotheosis and Renew, and those aren't legendary spells. So, I think that the problem is the amount of card generation, not necessarily that there's legendaries in Discover. Like, does it suck that sometimes you can get 3 of a card when you're only supposed to have 1 of a card? Sure. But I don't think that is a legendary card problem. I think that that's a card generation problem.
Yep. It's, you shut down the access, not limit the cool effect.
Yeah, absolutely. They had some discussion about doing a deep sea theme for an expansion, which I am so on board with. So Nashatar was a patch in World of Warcraft that kind of took us to the sunken city, but then took all the water away. It was because they did an underwater zone and people hated it. I wasn't playing at that point in time, but I feel like it would have been awesome. But apparently not. Apparently people just hated it. And so when they went to the sunken city, they went to the sunken city, but brought it to the surface. Well, it wasn't really the surface, right? Like, the water made like a wall up around the perimeter sort of deal.
Was that the dungeon with Neptulon?
That was in Vazir was the Cataclysm zone that was underwater that had that dungeon. Yes. Nazjatar was in BFA.
That's right. That was relatively recent. Yeah.
Patch.
Movement in water levels in games has historically been a pain point.
Yeah.
And I don't think WoW was exempt from that. And the theming seems like it would work because you don't have to deal with underwater movement management in a card game. But I'm not surprised it was poorly received in WoW. And Kata had a whole bunch of that undergroundy stuff, like in the Maelstrom too. You're not underwater; you're kind of under rock, underground.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Oh, but man. The Stone Mother. I can't remember. Anyways, doesn't matter. But yeah, you're right. There was an there was
Break
an underground
yourselves
cave.
upon my body. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a classic.
Yeah, there definitely was that area too. But yeah, I would be totally down for any sort of like deep sea Naga type theme. I mean, really, I just want them to play. I want them to play and have fun and make me more Hearthstone expansions forever. I mean, I think eventually we're gonna just get there, right? Because if we have Hearthstone for the next 10 years, they're gonna go under the sea at some point. Deep home, thank you, chat room. Deep home.
Dean said it's gonna be a while, so it's not gonna happen anytime soon.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Oh, Hat. It's going to be a punny night, I can tell.
It sure is.
So one other thing I wanted to talk about from the AMA was that Ixar talked about showcasing matchmaking ratings in Constructed. And he said they would consider adding it if they thought it would give people more enjoyment. So I have some thoughts and feelings here because...
Oh, boy.
Yeah, okay. After, months and months and months and months that we've had this new bajillion star system with, 10 different buckets in each rank and all the rest of it, I think that if that was presented to me in the same sort of way that the Tavern Pass is presented to me and was like, hey, you currently have bronze rewards for this month, and you know, like if it was totally separate. But then when I went into the ladder, it was like, hey Joss, you're number 10,067 and you're facing off against person number 8,072. Then I feel like that is a number I could like work on and would indicate my skill. And if I could figure out how to make that go higher, like whether it's an actual rank against other players or just a matchmaking value, like I want someone to tell me how good I am at the game, not how much time I spend every month. So I think I would be on board with this. I think it would give me enjoyment, but I think I'm weird. So I think maybe this wouldn't maybe be the best for everybody, but like if you could, even if you could like toggle it on and off or something, I don't know. But I get like super frustrated when I'm playing in bronze against other legend players. And I'm just like, why isn't this a bronze game? Am I a bronze gamer? I don't even know what's happening right now. But again, that's my weird head.
So I don't think that this is an uncommon concern inside a very small part of ladder. Because really, like the biggest flaw with the current system, and Dean's talked about the current system on Twitter this weekend. He said it's a good system that he's generally pretty happy with. My biggest concern is the lack of clarity. It doesn't elevator pitch well. And the thing that I want the most that I think would alleviate the problem, because I think the MMR is totally a Brack situation of we think we want it, but we really don't.
But wait, didn't he say that about WoW Classic and then everybody loved it? And
okay,
it's like
he was
a whole
incorrect
big
about
thing
that
now?
thing, but in this time, I think that we
This
can apply it
case?
correctly.
Okay.
What I think would help is some kind of fixed thing saying this is your current MMR-based multiplier for next month. That's if you don't hit the ranked floors, this is where we'd put you. And so right now there's a problem of if you're in Legend, am I 10x or 11x? People on the cusp are like, am I in? And they stop playing because they're not sure if they're in or not. If you spend extra time and you reach a higher ranked floor, you want to know, do I need to hit that rank again, or can I play less and keep my bonus or not? There needs to be some kind of visibility into what my current rank-based multiplier would be. And
Yeah,
I'd love if there was more clarity.
That's a really good point, I think, because that's basically like how they do a lot of the matchmaking, right? Is using your...
It is exclusively using your MMR for matchmaking until you're out of star bonuses. And really, the thing that I wish was more clear, if there's anything that I could say to clarify the system to people that are playing right now, the amount of stars that you have and your rank is the amount of time you've invested this month. But your multiplier is your actual skill measurement over time. So your multiplier is what you should focus on if you want to know if you're getting better at the game or not. If that steadily goes up, you're improving, that's really your rank. The metal number or whatever with the picture inside of it is a reflection of how much time you've invested this month.
Right.
That's what it really means.
Right. And so I feel like maybe that's kind of on us a little bit more than being on on us as the community as opposed to Blizzard, although being able to see like your current multiplier and maybe even with like a progress bar or something, like how close am I to the next one up or something like that might actually be really helpful. Because like the biggest thing that I have is I think of myself as like, oh, I'm a silver or a bronze or a whatever. It's like, no, I'm a 10-star Hearthstone player. Like, which, you know, and
the discussion in so many Discords I'm in is like, are you 10x or 11x? That comes up a lot. And so that distinction is really clear. Like, are you legend or are you like legend? With like, you know, put a little bit of emphasis on it.
Yeah.
But also, you know, it's a reflection of, are you putting the time in it and getting to legend and playing around with whatever you want, or are you consistently in the top 1,000 of each region? And you know, there are players that will put a ton of time in and get that higher multiplier and then sink down the next season, be like, I don't know what I did wrong. I feel like I'm getting punished. I don't think the system is very clear on how MMR versus rank-based multipliers work unless you do a lot of research outside the game.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be necessary. So it's just it's a byproduct of the system. Though I mean, the system is designed to reduce ladder anxiety by giving you less information. It makes things more confusing on purpose so that you don't think about it and then you just play and then it usually takes care of you. But for the people that are highly invested like yourself that want to know, there should be the option to know. And for most people, they like Hearthstone, the vast majority of the Hearthstone player base is not interested in their MMR, and seeing their stack ranking relative to the population of 24 million people would probably be demoralizing.
Yes.
That probably shouldn't be on by default.
But I do like your star idea. I mean, I feel like, you know, that Simpsons episode where like they're not in school for whatever reason and Lisa's just like, just grade me.
Yes.
Like that's how I feel in Hearthstone. Is I'm like, please, Hearthstone, just grade me. Tell me how good I am or bad. But yeah, like I just, and because the other like kind of piece of that is like the month that I hit legend, like then I got my 10 stars, but then I didn't play very much the month after. And then because that's when I was having a lot of my health stuff. And then so I got the month after that and I dropped back down to 9. And I was like, but I did it. You know, I hit legend. I had such a good win rate. Like I was doing so well. I think I was like 68% win rate or something like that on my legend run. And I'm like, I don't understand what I did to make it think that I'm bad at the game now. And then it also makes me want to do things like steer away or re-roll quests that are in classes that I'm not as comfortable with, or like, because I don't know how close I am to that boundary, like what I should be doing. Like, is it exclusively win rate, or like how is it even measured, or like, so just I'm playing Hearthstone scared, you know, because I just don't know what's impacting my stars outside of just, like you said, like grinding and getting all the way up to legend. And then, you know, like guaranteeing that I get those 10 stars. And it's just like, but I don't have the time every month all the time, you know? And so, yeah.
And the system is designed to work on the foundation of we'll figure it out, trust us.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're that kind of person, then it's perfect and you don't even need to worry about it. And in reality, the reason the star bonus system exists is to give you better games, to match you against closer opponents, and eliminate the problem of back in the day when you're rank 15 and then someone with a legend card back and an all golden control warrior deck speed bumps you in 4.5 minutes, and you're like, that couldn't have been fun for either of us. The job is to eliminate that experience entirely. And if someone puts in a ton of time and gets that 10x multiplier, and the next month they put in way less time and they find themselves at 9x, it doesn't mean they got worse. It means that the game is trying to find opponents for how you're engaging with the game right now. If you are less engaged and you are busier and you're not going to keep up with all the meta decks and you're not gonna jam a ton of games to really understand the matchups, maybe it's okay to reel in your opponent quality a little bit and pair against other people that are approaching the game the same way. And that's all it's trying to do, and it's successful at it. But if you're playing with fear, if you're worried about losing that multiplier because it's a possession, well, there's no real solution for that right now other than we can talk, do some Hearthstone therapy here in the show.
I think, honestly, I mean, you've been my Hearthstone therapist in DMs. Like, you understand how crazy my brain gets.
Yeah. You feel guilty about your 75% win rate with Hunter because it shouldn't be what you're doing right now. So clearly I must feel bad about it.
Yeah.
We'll talk more later.
I think maybe we should.
Yeah.
So before we get into all of the cards that have been revealed in the past couple of days, we do want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Gabi Insurance.
Hey everyone, Garrett here. Joce and Hat will be back in a second, but I wanted to talk to you about how you can get a better insurance with Gabi. Everyone knows I live my life a quarter mile at a time, but that doesn't mean I need to overpay for my car insurance, or my homeowner's insurance for that matter. Gabi is the one true comparison platform with fast, verifiable quotes, not ballpark guesses. You can use your current policy to find a better policy, comparing your current coverage with 40 of the top insurance providers like Progressive, Nationwide, and Travelers, and it's all in the same place. That's what I did. I've been with Geico since I got my Focus back in 2018. I went to Gabi.com/TAC. All I had to do was log into my Geico account through Gabi, and bam, it turns out Safeco will save me $218 on the exact same coverage. Now, Gabi customers save $961 per year on average, and they'll never sell your info, so you're not going to get more annoying spam or robocalls. You don't need to worry about that. Put your policy to the test like I did. Get a better insurance with Gabi. It's totally free to check. There's no obligation, and you support the Angry Chicken while doing it. So go to Gabi.com/TAC. That's spelled GABI.com/TAC. And once again, that's Gabi.com/TAC. We thank them for their support. Back to Joce and Hat.
And we are back and we have cards. So many cards. I'm excited. Not all of the cards yet, but quite a big chunk. We're only a couple weeks away from the expansion actually launching. And yeah, so we've got some stuff to talk about. No Demon Hunter stuff yet, though. We're going to jump right into Druids. So our first Druid card we have is a 6-mana common Druid spell that is tradable. So this is our new keyword for the expansion. If you guys don't remember, tradable cards, when they're in your hand, you can drag them over your deck, pay 1 mana, shuffle them back in, and draw something else. So this is a 6-mana tradable spell called Best in Shell, which summons 2/7 turtles with taunt, which I'm assuming have a beast tag. So, Hat, what do we think about this? Because this is giving me like kind of Spreading Plagues vibes, but like consistently always 2 for sure.
So I want to point out the original title for the translation, because this was revealed, I think, on a Korean site. The original English translation was Shell Company, which I thought was great, but then Best in Shell might be better.
Yeah, they're both pretty great.
Yes. This is a lot of butt, and tradable is good because if you don't need a lot of butt, then that's fine. And if you solar eclipse this against aggro, the game is over.
Yeah, I thought you meant this is a lot of butt, as in like you were gonna have a lot of but then type statements.
No.
And then I was like, no, he means booty. it's a lot of turtle booty.
Yeah, thick health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you solar eclipse this, that is 28 taunt butt. That's a large amount.
That's
significant.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard for really anyone to get through, except for like maybe Rush Warrior, who's had a lot of hand buffs ahead of time. Like, yeah. Or is ready with their big, huge combo, right?
Something that's more threat dense, that's going for playing large things in the end of the game. Like, this isn't going to stop them forever, but it gives you time.
Mm-hmm.
And against decks with more, against your Face Hunter deck, if they went overgrowth into this, you would be upset.
Oh, yeah. I would just be bottom right. Like, we're done.
Yes. And you could beat a couple 2/7s, but it's a lot of time earned here.
Mm-hmm.
Very good against like Glowfly Swarm, really strong there. It's just it slows the game down, and when you don't need it to, you get something else. I expect tradable cards to see more play than the win rate would indicate, because people will really love the flexibility. We've talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
But the first cards we saw were tech cards. The batch of tradables that we got today, I don't think I'd call them tech cards. I think I'd call them more specific situational cards.
Well,
The mechanic has more design space than I originally thought.
Yeah, I think that like we might have been just referring to them as tech cards, but I know when they first talked about the keyword, they were very careful about saying situational. And I think that's exactly what this is. I think in a very aggressive meta, you're going to put this in for the matches when you go up against those aggressive decks, which are going to be, you know, like, let's say 2/3 of your matches are against aggressive. But then the great thing about this card is that when you come up against a control matchup or a combo or whatever, you can be like, I don't really need this right now. I'm going to throw it back for something different. And it's that flexibility that I think makes this a super playable card, especially in Druid. I mean, like, even if you're doing something like tokeny, like this just makes 2 tokens that are going to be really hard to kill. And then you can just do a bunch of buffy stuff to it.
I think that I would expect this card to see play.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'd expect this to wind up in Druid decks. And you could even play this in your Glowfly Swarm deck because it's a spell.
Yeah.
But also it could, if there is a later game Druid combo deck, this is how you survive to the later game in a really meaningful way.
Yeah. So yeah, I think check marks from both of us. Good card. We're happy with this.
Yep.
Tradable in general seems like a thumbs up mechanic.
They have a few cards in this expansion that we're going to talk about today that I'm really excited to see tradable on, because I think they make the designs printable and they open up a lot of options they didn't necessarily have before because they were narrower.
Right. We also got another mount card. We got a Kodo mount, which is a 4-mana druid, rare druid spell. Give a minion +4/+2 and rush. When it dies, summon a Kodo. So as we talked about before, with these mount spells that we're getting in Stormwind is that whatever the buff is, when the minion dies and the mount gets summoned, the mount has the buff stats. So the Kodo that's going to get summoned is a 4/2 with rush, because again, that buff is adding the rush as well. So the mounts that get summoned are minion versions of whatever the buff is, because I'm sure every class is going to get a mount.
Not all of them, but I think 5 or 6 is what they said in interviews, but there are going to be quite a few. This card would be awesome in so many classes.
Mount? That's sad.
There are a few. I asked about Rogue because I thought it was going to be the Alliance class, and I want to see Scabs' like Robo Chicken, but there's not going to be a Rogue mount. So I don't know. I don't know what classes they're in this expansion or if they're going to go back to them, but they said like 5 or 6. This card would be really good in so many classes. In Druid, it feels a little weird because the class is so anti-minion right now. It's clear that this set is trying to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can play this on a turn where the rush matters, if you can play a minion and this the same turn, this card's awesome. Especially if the minion dies right away, it's Restless Mummy, but more. And that's really, really strong. But I don't think that Druid has a lot of minions to play with this card.
Yeah, I mean, any Druid that I've really seen lately isn't doing a whole lot of like single tall stacky minions.
It's the rush tells us that we want to play something cheap with this, and Druid, well, the only cheap minion they played was Gibberling, and this would be good with Gibberling, but they nerfed it. I don't think this is a reason why, but if you told me that they thought about it and this is a reason why, then I would believe that, because this would be pretty filthy with Gibberling.
This would be so bad and gross, and I would hate it.
Yeah.
The next card that we're going to talk about is Park Panther, a 4-mana 4/4 rare Druid beast with rush that says whenever this attacks, give your hero +3 attack this turn. So this is interesting because assuming your opponent has a minion on board, it means that you're going to get 7 attacks worth of stuff for 4 mana and maybe leave a body behind afterwards. Like, that seems really good.
The rate here is crazy, right? And then if it lives, you just attack face for 7 next turn.
Yeah.
Right? Just 7 damage. It's just a Glaveband Adept. If Druid's going to play minions, if they keep printing minions like this, like, I will do it.
Then Druid's going to play minions.
I will do this thing. Like, this is a thing that I want to do. And also, by the way, don't forget, I know it is a proud and honorable tradition to fantasize about Menagerie Warden draws in Beast Druid decks. There's a thing we've been doing for a very long time. Remember, Stranglethorn Tiger on 5, Menagerie Warden on 6. How can you lose? Well, we found out about 2 days into the expansion when it was unplayable. But Menagerie Warden costs 5 now. It's the 5/5 that copies a beast. If you play this on 4, and you copy it on 5, that's a lot of damage.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of stuff.
So this is kind of like a Savage Combatant as well. If you remember that way back in TGT, a 4-mana 5/4 that had Inspire your hero gains +3 attack this turn.
Oh yeah.
So this, yeah. And I think it's like his sound effect was like "Unleash the Beast" or something very beastly.
Yeah, it was very low and gravelly.
Yeah, it's like reminded me of like Shere Khan in the Jungle Book sort of thing. And this is, that card in 2021 standards where you don't have to pay 2 extra to make the card do something. I hope there is a way to make this work because the rate is really good here, and I want to play with this card a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting card. And so is the legendary that we saw come out of Druid. So Sheldris Moontree, 8-mana 5/5 legendary Druid minion with a battle cry that reads, the next 3 spells you draw are cast when drawn, which on the one hand...
This is quite the sentence.
Yeah.
This is quite the sentence.
Like, on the one hand, I'm like, whoa, that's insane. On the other hand, I'm like, but I want to do combo-y things with Druid spells and cast them in a very specific order at a very specific time, but also maybe there's a crazy, ridiculous, crazy deck that doesn't care when I draw those spells because they're just always good all of the time. I don't know. Like, this seems like it's going to be in a very specific deck, and that deck is going to be bananas.
Okay. All right. So hear me out. Hear me out. We're going to go turn 10, right? You're going to play Sheldur's Moontree.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go Lightning Bloom, Innervate, play Pull Celts. Then you're going to do another Lightning Bloom. You're going to guess the weight. You're going to draw Survival into Guardian Animals. You're going to pull a Moonfang and a Lake Thresher, and you're going to win the game. And then I'm going to wake up. Because that's never going to happen. The text is so crazy. And by the way, the animation in this, gorgeous, really, really pretty. This is not a reliable card. If you can use it with Primordial Protector, I think is the best case, where it'll fish out your survival and then immediately cast it, and then you get your 10 drop, and then it keeps going because cast when drawn, right? It draws another card. If it hits another spell, you're happy. But you can't just play this in deck with a bunch of spells, because then you draw a Lightning Bloom. It's like, woo, mana, hooray, and then it's gone. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to make this work. And if you have time to say, hold on a second, I'm going to play this 8 mana 5/5 that with a blank text box, wait a turn, something cool is going to happen, and your opponent's like, I'm going to kill you now. that you can't do much about that.
Well, yeah, and Celestalon is clarifying in the chat room. What I was going to say is that it's a battle cry, so it's not an aura. So yeah.
The issue isn't that he has to stay alive, because he doesn't. The issue is that you have to stay alive. Because if your hero explodes, if your hero explodes because you said 8 mana 5/5 go, then the text doesn't matter.
Right. Okay. But yeah, I guess so. So if my hero explodes, I don't draw cards. Interesting concept.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Didn't you test this from the other hypothesis angle today? Like,
I definitely did.
They were doing
and they
druidy
did
stuff,
stop,
and you were like,
yeah, they definitely stopped drawing cards when they exploded, for sure.
Yes. Speaking of which, we've got some hunter cards.
We do have hunter cards, and you guys know that I love hunter cards. So I obviously love all of this, except for the fact that they're rats. Like, if we could have rats or like these cards and this spell and stuff, but just not rats, that would have made me much happier. But we're getting the Rat King in Hunter, who is a 5 mana 5/5 legendary hunter minion with Rush and a Death Rattle to go dormant and revive after 5 friendly minions have died. And you're kind of like, well, but man, so many minions have to die. Like, this, I'm not necessarily flooding the board. You are flooding the board if you're Face Hunter. But, you know, like, that's just, it's such a high price. Why would I ever do this? Because of the next spell, which is a 6 mana epic hunter spell called Rats of Extraordinary Size, which is summon 7 1/1 rats. Any that can't fit on the battlefield, which is always a problem with these summon a board full of spells. Any that can't fit on the battlefield, go into your hand and get buffed +4/+4. What? This is shenanigans.
There are a bunch of fascinating sentences in this set on cards where you're like, I didn't know they could do that. This is one of them. I didn't know that was a thing they could do. It immediately made sense when reading it, but it's very strange.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's bad. I think it's strange. Did you play Quest Hunter, like the Savior's Quest with the summon 20 and then you get the +2 attack thing?
The 1 mana things or whatever? Yeah.
Well,
It was terrible.
not the
It was
1 drops.
awful.
I think it's attack 20 times. Attack with 20, or summon 20 minions. It was summon 20 minions. That's right. The Uldum one. No, not the Marsh Queen. Marsh Queen was
okay, because that's the one I was thinking of, and I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that was like place a certain number of 1 mana, because your whole deck was 1 mana and it was terrible.
Unseal the Vaults. I think it was the one in Saviors.
Yeah. Okay.
Where we did like Swarm of Locusts and Desert Spear, and then eventually we did like Leroy Unleash, press the button, kill you. This has big like tokeny hunter vibes. You've been playing a lot of Face Hunter. My instinct says this doesn't go in that deck, but what do you think?
No, not at all. No, it definitely doesn't. I mean, you don't really it does have rush. So I mean, even when it wakes up again, it's going to have rush, right? So it's going to, after it's dormant, it's going to come back and do something right away. So you don't have to wait that extra turn. But I still don't really think the face hunter's ever doing this, right? Like, they don't care about rushing. They want to charge face. Rah! Like,
Yeah, you
rush
want a
doesn't
rhino.
go face.
You want to trample.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
That's definitely
I
not
don't.
what
This
this card's about.
No, this is
Yeah.
a new kind of hunter, and I'm excited about that because I feel like we've been playing face hunter for quite a while now, and they have had a lot of options. They've kind of been a middle of the road to very successful class for the duration of Hearthstone, and I think that has partly has to do with the cards that they've been printed, but also the fact that they've got a button they can push to just do 2 damage, which gives them a lot of space to do other things with their deck. So I think that it's been a little bit more flexible because of that over the kind of course of Hearthstone, and so they've leaned into Face Hunter. I feel like Face Hunter has been viable for like 4 or 5 expansions in a row now. There had been like more viable Hunter decks, but Face Hunter was like always kind of there. Like with the leper gnomes and the side quest thing that made the leper gnomes, like it just they've just been around. And I'm ready for Hunter to do something else. And I don't know, maybe playing around with rats is the something else that Hunter needs to do.
This is kind of like a token hunter, and it's more mid-rangey. Like, we've played around with Unleash the Beast and Zul'jin Hunter, and we've played around with Swarm of Locusts and Quest Hunter, and if we go way back in my day, we played Savannah Highmane, and that was just what we did in mid-range hunter or hybrid hunter, which is what you called your face hunter deck with Highmane. You called it hybrid hunter because names were dumb back then. So
no, it's because you didn't want to feel bad about playing Face Hunter, so you put a Highmane in, and you're like, see, I have something that costs 6 mana. It can't be Face Hunter. But it was.
Exactly.
It was.
It's a hybrid of face and 1/6 drop.
Yeah.
But so this clearly pushes Hunter in a slightly different direction. It's definitely going for a later game, fill the board, do some other stuff. It looks a little weird without the context of the full set, just like how Death Rattle Demon Hunter looked a little weird. And then it ended up working out, and this may end up working out into being at least a cohesive strategy. I don't know about competition yet. We haven't seen the whole set, but looks fun, looks interesting.
Yeah.
I want to try it.
Looks different, looks fun. So we already talked about Ramming Mount last week. We also talked about Mage last week. So Hat, are you ready to talk about the card that set the internet on fire?
Nope. Absolutely not.
Would you just want to skip it? We're just gonna go.
Have to talk about it.
No, we're just going right by
don't you-
Priest. We're not even. No, we're just gonna go straight into Warlock. Why
Okay,
not?
You can't delete Priest out of our show notes. We just talked about not doing that.
All right. We won't delete Priest. We are gonna talk about the 1 mana legendary Priest quest line, Seek Guidance. So this quest line begins by playing a 2, 3, and 4 cost card. After that, the reward for the first branch is to discover a card from your deck. Then you get your second branch of your quest line that says play a 5 and 6 cost card. So you're like, okay, cool. I'm just, playing on curve. This doesn't seem too difficult. I wonder what's going on. I'm going to discover another card from my deck after I've played my 5 and 6 cost card. Then your final part of your quest line is to play a 7 and 8 cost card, at which point your reward is Zyrella the Sanctified, which makes sense. She's a 5 mana 7/7. So that's, again, things that we've seen as the reward from our quest line have been these 5 mana 7/7 minions. All right, well, what does Zyrella do? Well, she has Taunt and a battle cry that says shuffle the Purified Shard into your deck. And at this point, you're probably going, wow, Jocelyn, get to the point. Like, what is this even doing? Come on now. Why is this such a big deal? Well, gentle listeners, for 10 mana, the Purified Shard, when it comes into your hand, can be cast to destroy the enemy hero.
What?
That's literally the text on the Purified Shard spell, is just destroy the enemy hero.
Yeah. And it is a generated card, so you know that Priest Generation is getting out of hand. Just kidding.
Oh my god,
That's a
can
meme.
you
I'm
imagine
memeing.
if you could like just discover
Just
Purified
discover it.
Shard?
Yeah. Yeah.
Discover,
Just
win the
renew
game.
into this
Yeah.
instead. Yeah, it's way faster. Just cast
Oh.
a single renew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, toxic.
How do you feel about Seek Guidance into Discover the Void Shard and Illuminate the Void and Desire the Sanctified into Purified Shard? How do you feel about delete the enemy hero?
I think that it is, it gives me like Uther Death Knight vibes, right? Everyone was like, oh my god, you get all four of the token here, all four of the, what were they? Apocalypse dudes. Horsemen, all four horsemen, and then the game ends and you know, everybody dies. And that was like, I loved playing that deck, but it was not competitive. It was not meta. It took a long time. It was hard to do. You had to build your entire deck around doing this one specific thing. And this is giving me those vibes. Now, it's not asking quite as much because it's just basically asking you to play on curve, but I do think that like you still need to play all of those individual cost cards. And I mean, like, I think one of the minions they showed them playing was Nisdormu, which was great and memey and everything else, which I kind of feel like this maybe is what this deck is going to be. It's just great and memey. But, you know, you still have to play all of those cards of all of those costs. And if for any reason you need to like, you know, play something else, like play a second, like 3 mana card or something else, then you're delaying the completion of this even more. Then you have to play Xyrella, then you have to draw your Purified Shard, right? And then you have to have the 10 mana to play it, however you get that 10 mana, or discount your spell, right? So there's like, there's a lot you have to do and a lot of mana you have to pay and a lot of drawing you have to do to get there. I think it's the kind of thing that you can build a deck around and you can get there. But I mean, like, people also complain that priest games take forever. Well, now they have a way to not take forever. So do you want fast priest games or do you want slow priest games? Like, do you want them to have a win condition or do you want to get bored?
And all right, so I have many feelings here. I'm gonna say my hottest take at the top. I love the design. I think the design is fantastic. Also, I will say at the same time, I do not believe this card to be competitively viable most of the time. Maybe we'll see some more tools for it, but I don't think they printed this card for competitive. I think the way that I would measure success as a designer, if I were a designer, is how many times do people want to do something that isn't usually the optimal way to win a game? The more you can get people to do something that because they want to do that thing instead of they want to win the game as efficiently as possible, big win as a design. What this card is saying is, if you have the time to do whatever you want for the entire game, then you can win with this, but you already could. Because if you look real close and you squint, you might hear Cthulhu's music and say, Cthulhu the Shattered, is that you? Because it's already the same thing, right? It's already, hey, do this thing with these cards that I put in my deck and then shuffle an I win button in and then play it. And this is a little better than Cthulhu. But when it starts in your opening hand, you're down a card in the mulligan. You're making your aggressive matchups worse, which are the matchups where you don't have the time for this. You already dumpster all control mirrors. I understand that people will be like, well, this is like a Jade Idol that beats Control Warrior. Have you played with Control Priest against Control Warrior right now? It's already like a 70-30 matchup at worst. Like, it is not hard at all to really dominate that matchup. So this theoretically gives the game a clear endpoint. It allows people to build around wonky combos. If they want to put Pole Celt in the deck or whatever to guarantee they draw the shard, go nuts. They want to play Primordial Protector, go nuts. Because you have to play the 7. Can't play the 7 and the 8 the same turn. Then you have to wait a turn. Then you have to play the 8. Then you have to wait a turn. Then you have to play 5 and a 7/7. Then you have to wait till you draw the 10 drop. Then you have to play the 10 drop. It has time. If you have time to do those things on your terms, you have won the game. How you finish it doesn't matter. This is just a cool thing that people will want to do because the phrase "destroy the enemy hero" is a fun phrase.
It's a fun sentence. Yes. It's fun context. I mean, yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed Uther. Not because he was like super duper viable or anything, just because it was really cool to try to figure out stupid fun ways to get all 4 of those horsemen. And it was almost to the point most of the time where you're right, Hat. I probably could have won the game 18 other different ways, but I chose not to. And I chose to try to get all 4 of those horsemen because the animation was super cool and the effect was amazing. And just playing a thing to just one-shot the enemy hero, regardless of whatever, makes me very happy. So yeah, I think that this is like, again, it's one of those things that the internet lost their mind about, but I think it's actually fine. Like,
It's how do you parse the words? Like, how do you parse the words? It just says destroy the enemy hero. That's a crazy sentence. And this whole set seems to be built around the idea of what if something cool happens later.
yeah.
That is, there are so many cards in the set that are about what if something cool happens later. But those are the moments that we play Hearthstone for. There are efficient cards in the set. There are good aggressive tools. There are good control tools. But there are a lot of what if some cool shit goes down. And this is some cool shit. I don't know.
It really is. So yeah, again, that is the priest quest line, and it's kind of bonkers, which I think is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. We also saw Call of the Grave get announced. So this is a 1 mana epic priest spell that says discover a death rattle minion. If you have enough mana to play it, trigger its death rattle. So this doesn't say that you have to play it, just if you could, then get then basically the death rattle goes off, which also is kind of a like, well, I knew what you drew. Like, so
Yeah.
it's definitely a
and-
giveaway to your opponent.
This is another cool mechanic that I would never have thought of in a million years and immediately understood. And it's people are gonna mess up this card, and by people I mean me the first time I play it, because you're gonna play this on turn 5. Yeah, you're gonna play this on turn 5, and the pool is always every death rattle. It's not like resizing pouch where the way that people are gonna read this card is that they're gonna get 3 death rattles that they can trigger that turn, but that's not how it works. The pool is always every death rattle. And if you're on like turn 4 and then you see a Talon Fordring, like, oh yeah, I'll just draw my card now. You don't, because you don't have the mana for it. So this card scales as the game gets later, and the bigger the thing you pick, the more mana you need up front. So it's kind of self-regulating in that way. If you're in the late game, this is like a Draconic Studies with upside. If you're in the early game, it's a Journey Below, which is not a very good card. I like the range here, and it's fascinating, and nobody really knows how it's going to play. My instinct is that the only reason you're playing this is because you're playing Shadow Priest because you can't play Draconic Studies. But it's cool to give Shadow Priest that access. It's all right, so I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because in the Shadow Priest build, based on the legendary Dark Bishop Benedictus, which you guys can see, we talked about it last week, but it is up on the screen right now. At the start of the game, if all the spells in your deck are Shadow, then you automatically enter Shadow form, which means you're right, Hat. Like this, to me, says Shadow Priest. Like this is part of the Shadow Priest support to just give them some cool stuff to do early in the game, or some flexibility, like you mentioned, late game. So I think that Call of the Grave is definitely meant specifically to satisfy that deck condition and just give players some, like leeway in their deck building decisions. So this might be good, it might not be good, but it's definitely a Shadow Priest card, I think. So how much we see Call of the Grave, I think is going to depend on how much we see Shadow Priest, which I hope is a lot, because again, I want them to do new and different things, even if that means destroying my face with a purified shard. So we talked about the Elk Mount last week, so we're not going to go into that one. So let's take a look at Shaman, because you talked about it earlier. Chat room was talking about it as well. They got a 1 mana epic spell called Overdraft, which is tradable. And it's the text on it reads, unlock your overloaded mana crystals to deal that much damage, which, like, what a cool card. And again, with tradable on it makes it so much cooler, because like you can be like, oh hey, I can't actually play this right now because I am not in the overload portion of my deck, but I can go get something else. Like, this is so cool. This isn't even situational based on what your opponent is doing. This is situational based on you, which is also another cool, like, situational, I don't want to say like keyword, but like situational situation. Way to go with your words, Jocelyn.
Scenario.
Thank you.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah, it's a different sort of scenario, where you might want to see or might want to make use of tradable. Like a lot of the things we've talked about so far have been like, what's my opponent doing? Do I need to play this card or not? Well, this shaman card, Overdraft, asks, well, what am I doing? Do I want to play this card or not? And I think that's really cool and not a way that I was kind of looking at and thinking of the tradable mechanic.
This is the card that made me think, okay, maybe tradable should be evergreen, right? Because the situation here is I'm a burn deck and it doesn't burn right now, so let me get something else. This is a proactive but narrow card that if tradable didn't exist, this card would be horrendous. It would just sit in your hand. Maybe you'd use it in a control deck if you had big fatty overload stuff. But if you were playing an aggro shaman and then you drew this and you weren't overloaded, it's the worst top deck in the world. Tradable makes this card printable and you couldn't do it otherwise. So I think it's brilliant. I also think the card is being overrated, that people are going to go crazy for it. It can do a lot of damage. It can do a ton of damage because it unlocks this turn's crystals and next turn's crystals. It unlocks both and throws all those locks at their face.
Right. So I just love that visual. Like now I want that to be the animation. It's just all of those little silver locks just being thrown at the opponent's
a hand
face.
just grabs them, just like, bleh.
Love it. So this works basically the same way that Lava Shock did, in that you get both of your turns, your current and next turn. Like anything that's overloaded, it just gets rid of completely. Which is a really, really cool idea. And I like that they're playing a little bit more with overload, but in the kind of relieving the overload, because that was when we had Lava Shock, that was really good and allowed you to kind of play around with some overload cards. And then it went away in standard and it's like, but now what do I do? Like, can I overload a lot, or like, where's that push and pull? And when you can't clear your overload ever, it starts to feel like a really one-dimensional mechanic. This starts to make it interesting. So I want to see, like, I feel like I'd be totally cool with this getting put in the core set. Like, just keep it around forever. Like you said, tradable evergreen mechanic and, give shamans a way to unlock overload forever. I'm down.
Yep. And right now, you look at your aggro elemental shaman builds, even if you have Doomhammer, they're usually not running Lightning Bloom. They're sticking with cards that have Overload 1 most of the time. If they even play Overload cards at all, it's usually cards where you want the card anyways because of the rate, which means Lightning Bloom, or Lightning Bolt, and Serpent Shrine Portal. And not much else, maybe Doomhammer. We might start to look at including those higher number Overload cards because of Overdraft. Control Shaman also, Control Shaman gets more value out of the unlocking than out of the damage, but it can be kind of both because Control Shaman really doesn't like being overloaded because you need to answer stuff multiple turns in a row. Aggro Shaman's looking for the burn, but if this isn't an efficient burn spell because you have to work so hard just to make a lightning bolt, you just don't play it, it's fine. But Control Shaman needs the unlocking. Now, there is one major issue with this card why I think it's going to see less play than it would any other time. It is not a nature spell, so you cannot play it with Primal Dungeoneer if you want to draw an elemental. So that changes how you build your decks. And this card really wants to be with Perpetual Flame anyways, which is also not a nature spell. It leads us in a different direction. It's a different option for building shaman decks. And I love that it's a different option that theoretically also seems viable.
I agree. And I think that, I'm really glad that it's not a nature spell, because I think if you could just draw this with Dungeoneer, or if it was an activator for Dungeoneer, that, it'd be a lot. I feel like we'd see it all the time just for the sake of it, right? I don't know. I'm glad that synergy doesn't exist and that, like you said, we're going in potentially a different direction. So Shaman also got another spell, a 6-mana epic spell. So this is 2 epic spells for Shaman, called Tiny Toys. And this is this is so ridiculous. So Tiny Toys for 6 mana summons 4 random 5-cost minions, but changes their stats to 2/2. But they're not adventurers. They're 4 random 5-cost minions.
How do you feel about this? What's your feeling?
I don't even know how to feel about this.
You have feelings?
This makes me think that some class, Hunter got the rats. Is everybody going to get a 6-cost spell that summons tokens?
I don't know, but I know that this card is a little spooky because there are some 5s out there. I have a few 5s. A few 5s I want to tell you about.
Okay.
There's the Rat King. There's Burning Blade Acolyte, which when it dies, it makes a 5/8 taunt. There's Talon Fordring, you know him.
Yes.
There's Overlord Runthak, the hand buffer.
Right.
There's Envoy Rustwix, which is going to make games goofy in a hurry. There's Inara, which is like, hey, would you like to also be a Doomhammer? There's Greybow, which when it dies and then it hits one of the other 2/2s and it comes back. Yep. Twilight Runner, pretty good because you know stealthy, draw 2 cards. Ras Frost Whisper, pretty good. Alar, pretty good.
So basically, lots of good options in that 5 slot, which is also what makes Jandis good, right? Is the fact that you get these 5-cost minions. So you're summoning 4 of them, which to me, and chat room has mentioned as well, gives me like evolve vibes. Like all of a sudden I just have 4 5-drops that I can make 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 drops. But then
and
like
Bogspine Knuckles is still in standard and costs 5, which is 1 turn before this 6-mana spell. So if you go Bogspine into Tiny Toys, that's 4 6-drops on turn 6.
That seems like too many 6-drops on turn 6, even if they are random. Like you should get 1, maybe 2, but 4.
So normally on turn 6, I pay 6 mana for 1 6-drop.
Yeah.
I don't normally pay 6 mana for 4. That's about 4 times more.
Yeah.
Or also it is 3 additional 6-drops for those that prefer addition.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like Tiny Toys again, and I mean, Evolve Shaman feels like a deck that we have kind of seen come and go over the last, well, since Evolve, the mechanic was introduced, right? It's always been this thing that Shaman does, whether people like that Shaman does it or not, different story, but it's definitely a Shaman thing. And they can still do it in standard, so I think we're going to see some of that. Now, does that evolve deck? Is that where Overdraft goes? Like, is there a lot of overload that you might end up with in that deck? Like, do these things get played together? Is evolve the other direction Shaman's going to go? Like, what do you think, Hat?
Trying to predict where the set's meta is going to go seems like a fool's errand.
But Hat, try. Tell me if Garrett's going to be really mad or not.
Okay. Have you met Garrett? Yes, he will be. I don't know if it'll be about this. There will be something.
It'll be something.
Okay.
Rip Garrett.
Whatever caused him to lose a game the first day of the expansion will be the thing that upsets him. Will this be that thing? It's plausible. I think there's a chance. But also, what I love so far about what I've seen is that there are cards that drive you in a particular direction to build towards, and they all seem to be slightly different directions with slightly different choices. And there are a lot of options. Well, it'll remain to be seen.
Options are good.
Yeah.
They make for a fun game.
We don't know what's going to be good enough, but there are a lot of cards that are having a stretch or deck building muscles before we've even seen the rest of the set. I love that concept. I love that that's what's happening and that's how we're reacting.
Yep, agreed.
What'll be good? Who knows? I don't know.
But at least we're trying to think outside the box, which is fun. So Warlock, we've got a couple of new Warlock cards this week. So we have already talked about the Demon Seed, their quest line, I guess last week. We also talked about the Ruined Mithril Rod, which is
say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, no, thank you. So Hat, why don't you tell me about the next card? Because this was your card reveal on episode 300 of Coin Concede.
Touch of the Nathrazim is 1 mana shadow spell. It's a rare for Warlock. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it dies, restore 4 health to your hero. Hey, remember how we were saying Warlock needed consistent healing and good defensive tools? Exhibit A. Ta-da!
Yeah. So this gives me like Mortal Coil vibes. Like kill a minion with the spell and do a thing.
It's if Mortal Coil is peanut butter and Nether Breath is chocolate, then this is the Reese's. We're right in the middle.
Okay, I see where you're going. I'm like, are we doing a peanut butter and jelly thing? Or no, you went with the Reese's. Also delicious.
Yes. You got chocolate in my peanut butter. You got peanut butter in my chocolate. You know, it's a thing. This is the Warlock candy. But yeah, we need consistent healing and removal, and this does that. We are gonna take a bunch of damage doing demon seedy things, and then this gets back a lot of it. Especially if you play this with Tammy. Tam's in Rome, because this is 4 mana, deal 4, gain 8. I heard this described as Dark Pact your opponent's minion, since they nerfed Dark Pact to 4 health, and that's also kind of accurate.
Okay.
I don't know. You've been playing Face Hunter. How much do you not want to see this card ever in your entire life?
Oh man, it's gonna get rid of my stuff and also heal them. That's gross. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. Heal is cheat. Right up there with taunt. Take both of those things out of the game. Just kidding. I don't want to play Face Hunter anymore. So yeah, but you're right. Like,
you feel guilty because you're winning. Weird.
Yeah. But yeah, that was one thing that we were talking about with Demon Seed, with the amount of damage that you had to take over the course of your quest line, that you were going to need some way to recover some of that health, or you were just going to die before you got to do the real cool thing. Right. So I think that this is support for their quest line, and Warlock in general. It needs a little bit of support right now, and I think this card is a really good way to do that. It's low mana cost, removal, and also gives you some heal. So, I mean, you're going to be hurting yourself with your hero power, if nothing else. So I think, yeah, this is just a good Warlock card. It's very like basic, feels like a card that should just kind of be there all the time. You know, it feels like something their class just needs, and kind of like the Shaman spell, right? Just, it makes it an interesting design space when they can live a little longer. It makes it an interesting design space when you can clear your overload. So yeah, I'm very happy with the kind of 1 mana spells we've seen today from those two classes. We also got Shady Bartender, a 5 mana 4/4 common Warlock minion that is tradable and reads Battlecry. Give your demons +2/+2. So don't have any demons on board? Get them out of here. But you got some demons? Well, now they're bigger.
I'm looking at the art, trying to figure out the shady part, because he just looks like well-groomed, and I don't know if that's shady.
Yeah, I think maybe he's supposed to be a pirate, and pirates are a little bit shady, maybe? I don't know.
I'm looking at the drink bottle too, and it looks a little fun. I don't know. I'm sure that there's something going on here lore-wise.
Potentially.
But either way, so those of you old school gamers, you'll remember that Zoo was a deck back in the day. For those of you that have started playing in the past couple of years, Zoo was really, for a long time, it was about fill your deck with a bunch of cheap stuff, use life tap to play multiple things a turn and win. In the world of Rush, the life tap tax is no longer the sort of thing where you can get away with just playing a bunch of cheap stuff and playing more of them, because your stuff gets removed the turn you play them, and Rush makes the game inherently a little bit more defensive, so your cards have to do something when you play them, and your Flame Imps don't really do that.
Mm-hmm.
So Zoo's going to have to evolve, and going to play more cards like Midway Maniac, the 2 mana 1/5 taunt, and more Minari Mosher, the 3 mana 3/4 that gives something a demon +3 attack and lifesteal. You're going to have to go for more demon synergy stuff, as opposed to just loading up your deck with cheap stuff, and this card pays off with that. And again, tradable, makes it kind of okay. It could be a Fungal Mancer, it could be a little better than a Fungal Mancer, or it could be a card they say, I don't need this right now, let's do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And another example of how tradable had a lot more design space than I was envisioning. And I think it's a good way to, it's basically draw half a card in terms of power level, and they've needed something like that for a long time to make cards like this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think thumbs up on the Shady Bartender, and maybe back to some Zoo things, which would also be cool, because you're right, it's been a while since we've seen Warlock doing like a straight up Zoo. Well, like you said, since basically Rush came in, like making your board just a little bit bigger than it's supposed to be so that you can value trade, just that's not a design space that's viable in competitive Hearthstone right now. So yeah,
we've had cheaty Darkglare things where like you play Nightshade Matron and discard your hand to Gul'dan and draw a billion cards and play 0 mana Flesh Giants and all that, and like, no, I want Flame Imps.
Yeah,
I want to play 1-drops. And it's not the same.
Yeah. We can't just like give stuff +1 attack and it's like, whoa, what? Anymore.
Yeah, you can't direwolf alpha people.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I remember hurting my brain thinking about positioning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't miss that a ton. It's fine.
And then finally this week in Warlock, we got Demonic Assault, which is a 4-mana common Warlock spell that deals 3 damage and summons 2 1/3 Voidwalkers with Taunt. So is this worth its 4-mana cost? We do know we've got Shady Bartender sitting there waiting on 5, but do I want just 2 1/3s and dealing 3 damage? Like 4 mana seems like a little bit much for that. Like if this is the only thing I'm doing on turn 4, I don't know if it's enough.
It depends what you've done before and what you're doing after, right? Just like every other card in Hearthstone, I know that's not an answer. Bear with me. So, first of all, important note, it goes face.
Yes, it is
Warlock
deal
doesn't
3
have stuff that
damage.
goes
Yeah,
face.
it's not minion specific. True.
Warlock doesn't have stuff that goes face right now. We're missing Soulfire very badly. A little bit of reach could go a long way. I think this card is versatile and goes in most Warlock decks. This is a Dark Bomb, 2 mana deal 3 damage, and 2 Voidwalkers. You're paying the exact cost for all of those, but
Okay.
it's 1 card and not 3 separate cards, right? So the discount is in the card economy here. Now, if there have been decks historically that have played like a Tar Creeper, Crypt Lord, as you develop something the first couple turns, then you protect those things with a big annoying taunt. This does that, right? If you have a couple big minions that you play in the early game and then you want them to live and they don't have a ton of health, you play this, suddenly attacking through no longer becomes viable. If you're playing this to slow the game down, deal 3, if you're against 4 2/2s, for example, or against 5 2/2s, you kill one of them with this. The other 4 have to hit into taunts. That was 4 mana, deal 3, gain 8. That's pretty good. That's all right. So if you're playing this in a full control deck, it's kind of a weird swipe. Deal 3 to one thing and then deal 1 to a couple
To
other
a
things.
few things. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's kind of okay. And maybe you use School Spirits to soften stuff up, but it's probably not like a pure control card. It's probably like if I want to pause the game for a minute so I can do my cool thing and then take over, that's kind of where I'd want it. And I think Warlock needs that kind of archetype to be viable if we're playing Warlock, so this will go in those decks if there is a deck to go in. And I think in a modern Zoo variant, where you play a few things early and then you kill a thing and then you play Shady Bob on 5.
Shady Bob.
Shady
Okay.
Bob. Then all of a sudden, then you've got a bowl game. I don't know. I think there's something going on there.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I feel like when I look at this, I want it to be 3 mana, but again, because we're dealing with mana cost and they're like integers, right? Like you can't pay 3.5. Then it's the kind of thing where it's like at 3, it's like super powerful auto include, like you just play this, right? And then, but if it's 4, I'm like, that's a little bit much. I don't know if I want to pay that. And it's because we're in the low mana cost part of the game that there's so much less flexibility with like power levels and stuff that I don't know. I think everything that you said is right. We'll have to kind of see how this goes. I hope that if like a demony zoo thing doesn't end up working out, that maybe we see this get buffed and just drop down that 1 mana slot, like just to give them a little bit of a boost. But again, we haven't seen the whole set. Maybe there's a lot more support for just having demons and kind of flooding the board with demons and then bartendering them. Like that could be cool. So we'll have to see what else Warlock has in store as we go through the rest of the expansion. We got 1 new warrior card this week that we didn't cover last week. It is Lothar, which is such an iconic Stormwind character. I am totally down with this. At the end of your turn, he's a 7 mana 7/7 legendary warrior minion. At the end of your turn, attack a random enemy minion. If it dies, gain +3/+3. So kind of rush, but not targeted.
Kinda.
But
No.
with a frenzy effect, but not just frenzy because it keeps happening. So maybe with an enrage effect, except for we're not using that word anymore. Like he's little bits of a whole bunch of stuff that we've seen before in this kind of cool 7 mana 7/7 package.
It's a very interesting card. And and if he lives a turn, and then you can attack face the next turn, and he duels something again.
Well, yeah, because this is a persistent effect. It's not a battle cry, right? So it's an end of turn effect. He'll keep doing it as long as he lives.
Yeah. He kind of like a Warmaul Challenger sort of thing too.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a lot of things.
So I love the flavor. I love what they did. Like this is Lothar. You really feel it. Troublemaker is one more man in the same class, and is a much larger threat that perpetuates itself faster. And when you look at this card next to Illidari Inquisitor, lovingly known as Green Rag, that card attacks face twice the turn after you play it, and attacks twice the turn that you do play it. This card attacks once to something that you don't know if you want to hit the turn you play it, and then keeps hitting minions. It's a mana cheaper, right? 7/7 instead of 7/7 instead of 8 mana. 8/8.
Yeah, you could play this into Troublemaker.
You could. I am a little less convinced that we want this kind of effect non-targeted without taunt. You can't really play it when you're behind unless you're only slightly behind against a single large minion, and you can use conditioning to make this bigger, and you can use run thack and whatever. I'm less convinced in the pseudo rush at this rate, especially when it has no defensive keywords.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
fair.
sure about it.
I mean, it does just keep getting bigger, and I'm a fan of big minions, so
yeah, I mean, if he does what he says in the box,
if he does what he says he's going to,
if he is not removed and keeps just eating enemy minions one at a time, and somehow the game is not over, then sure. I don't see how that happens.
Yeah. Oh man, Hat, you're killing my vibe.
It's a fun card. It could be all right. It's a good 7-drop, but we have some really good late game cards already that have a similar effect, but aren't at risk of dying to a venomous Scorpid. Because if this hits a venomous Scorpid, you're just going to be so sad.
That's true. I don't like being sad. All right,
yes.
Let's talk
about.
Wait,
you missed the pirate card.
What?
The pirate card. I didn't put it in the show notes, so it's fine. This will be seamless. Don't worry about it. Shiver their timbers.
I thought we talked about this one last week. Okay, Shiver Their Timbers is a 1-mana warrior spell, rare warrior spell. It says deal 2 damage to a minion. If you control a pirate, deal 5 instead. To a minion, deal 5 instead. Because pirate warrior in the past has been fairly aggressive. So I feel like saying where the damage goes is very specifically minions, not face.
Yes. No, this is not a mind blast.
Yeah, no.
Good lord. Oh.
Can you imagine? Pirate warriors, and also you get to just deal 1 mana 5 damage.
It's Wild would implode.
Yes.
We wouldn't have to worry about Darkglare Warlock anymore. They would just die.
So what do you think about shivering their timbers?
I think that's a very interesting way to phrase it, and I'm going to try and use that in conversations in the near future, and I'm going to see how many friends I lose. But what pirates are in Standard besides Sword Eater? Are there pirates? There are, right?
I mean, so this tells me there's going to be more. This tells me that warrior's going to get some, that we're probably going to get some neutrals, that pirates, whether it's this expansion or next expansion, might be making some sort of a comeback. But yeah, this tells me that they're going to be printing some more pirates. Definitely in this set, they might kind of accumulate by next set, because you don't print a pirate warrior card and then not give it any support, right? Like, we're going to see some pirates.
Yeah, because there's
the dude that gives you the weapon too. Isn't he a pirate?
Sword Eater, yeah. There are 6 total pirates in Standard that Warrior has access to. There's Bloodsail Deckhand, which is the weapon discounty guy, lady. There's Bloodsail Raider, which we know from Classic. Sword Eater, Stonemaul Anchorman, the Frenzy Rushy pirate. Ratchet Privateer, which gives your weapon +1 attack. And then Circus Amalgam, the 4-mana 4/5. Well, it's Circus Amalgam. Oh, and we've got a couple more. I had the filter set wrong. We've got South Sea Captain. We've got Fogsail Freebird, the 2/2 that deals 2 damage. And then and South Sea Scoundrel, which is unlikely to beat an aggressive deck, but I mean, it is a 4-mana 5/5. I don't know. There's some pirates here, but I haven't really thought about putting them together in a deck yet because we haven't had a reason to. So maybe we do know.
I mean, it seems like a good card. It's conditional, obviously, but I mean, it's 1 mana to deal damage, right? And 1 mana deal 2 isn't terrible. That's an arcane shot, right? Not terrible. But if all of a sudden that could be 5, like 1 mana clear something mid game is really good, because then I can clear something and still do something else of my own. So I feel like I think this is a pretty good card, with the asterisk like caveat of if there's enough pirates to make a pirate deck reliable, right?
Yep. And if you have minions that you need to remove, because it may very well be that not going face is a deal breaker and then we just don't play it. But the rate is good enough here that if we're playing Pirate Warrior, we probably want this.
Yeah. All right. So now, can I move through to neutrals? Because I know we've talked about heavy plate.
And we have 3 very exciting neutrals to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
These are all. This is gonna be a long episode. It's already a long episode.
It's already
these
long.
3 cards are yeah.
And I'll try to move through it as quickly as I can. First and foremost, we have Varian, King of Stormwind, who isn't a pile of dust. So I mean, what even is this card? Like, he must be bad enough that just every time I crack him, I'm gonna dust him right away, right? Like, that's how this works.
Is that a Variant thing?
It's literally how he died. He
Oh,
got
that's right.
exploded
Oh,
into
yeah.
a billion pieces by Gul'dan. Yeah.
I forgot he died in grisly fashion. Hooray!
Oh, isn't it so funny? Okay, so Varian, King of Stormwind is an 8 mana 7/7 legendary neutral minion. Chat room's telling me too soon. Come on, I play for the Horde. Battle cry, draw a rush minion to gain rush. Repeat for taunt and divine shield. So this is like I'm totally blanking on the name of the minion, but Paladin played this minion all the time.
So there are a few nicknames you can go for here.
Okay.
You can be Corpse Taker Ashmore. You can be Siamat Curator. You can just mix and match all these things, because you've got half of it where it looks in your deck for keywords and cares about them, right? And you've got choice between keywords. You've got a little bit of the Corpse Taker, where it's like, look in my deck. If I got these keywords, I get them. Or like CML, where you kind of choose which keywords.
Corpse Taker is the one that I was thinking of. I was like, she looks like a Death Knight.
Yes. And then you've also got the like Curator Countess Ashmore, where like you draw specific things. Now, the way this card works, it works like Ashmore. So the phrasing of the card's a little bit misleading, because if you have 3 rush minions, 1 taunt minion, 1 divine shield minion, you will always get all 3 keywords. You have to have something in your deck to hit to draw it, and it's not like hitting a single minion with rush, divine shield, taunt, whatever. Like if you draw a Ziliax, it doesn't get all 3. It only counts for the one that hits. But if you can hit multiple things that with the different keywords, you will always get the player favorable result. If you have like an animated broomstick and a Cariel in your deck, and those are the only rush minions in your deck, you will never draw Cariel first and then whiff on divine shield. You'll always get both.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's kind of like, it doesn't necessarily do it in the order. It's like it does all 3 at the same time, and then does like a pass-fail condition sort of thing.
I was worried about each draw being independent, but they're not. They're dependent. If it's possible to get all 3 keywords, you will get all 3 keywords.
Okay.
So it's going to be favoring the person that plays this, as opposed to favoring variants and introducing whiffs. So if you've got Tail and Fordring in your deck, you're at least going to get either taunt or divine shield. If it's the only divine shield minion, then you should get that. But if you don't have any other taunts, then I think it just gets the taunt. But if you hit all 3 on this, it is 8 mana, 7/7 rush, taunt, divine shield, draw 3 cards. We like that. That's a good card. We want to play that card.
I had completely forgotten until you emphasized it again that you also draw those 3 cards. It's not just that you get the rush, taunt, and divine shield on your 7/7. It's that you also get 3 cards in your hand that then also have rush or taunt or divine shield, whatever it was that made them good enough to go in your deck in the first place. So like, this seems kind of good. Like, kind of really good. And especially if you're playing it on curve, like you're playing it on 8, or even like later on in the game. Doesn't even matter if it's actually on turn 8, but you're probably going to be at the point where you might need some of that like hand refill and some more options of things to do on your next turn. This just seems really, really good.
It's what I love that they're doing in this set and this year is that they're making cards that draw you cards in neutral with conditions or trade-offs. And you don't put this in a really, really low curve deck, but if you want the game to go a little bit longer and then end, this is how you do it. And you're probably not going to play this in the same deck as new Alex, right? Because it's a lot of top end, but you
Right.
could. But this gives you other options to do and influences your deck building choices in a very real way that you want to hit these targets and have enough density to get there. I really like what they did here. I really like what they did with the next card they're going to talk about. We're going to play this card in Rush Warrior. Talon Fordring going to see even more play than he did before because we're going to want the Divine Shield in neutral. And also, if you draw the Talon first, then Talon gets you Varian. In Paladin, this will always have all three and will be goofy. We're going to play this. It's a cool card. And I'm not going to dust it.
Aw.
I'm
gonna
not gonna
dust
do it.
every single one of them just for the lulls. So the other card that you were talking about is Cornelius. Is that the one that you want to talk about
Cornelius,
next?
yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was
We're
going
saving
in
the
the
best
right
for
way.
last.
All right. So Cornelius Rome is a 6 mana 4/5 neutral neutral minion, not common, legendary. At the start and end of each player's turn, draw a card. That's some crazy shenanigans. So if I'm the one that plays it, I get a card at the end of my turn. Then my opponent gets an extra card at the start as well as an extra card at the end. And then it comes back to me and I get the card at the start. So then I'm giving my opponent initiative with the extra card draw, but then I get 2 cards drawn that are then immediately playable when it's my turn again. Yes. So like they get 1 card, but I get 2 cards. So better. Like technically they get 2 cards, but they can play 1 right away.
Why do they get cards? They don't get cards. No. Hold on. At the start and end of each player's turn, we draw a card.
Oh, they don't even draw a card. I thought it was both players drawing cards.
So
okay.
The text on this card is a bit confusing, and basically, this is Alaneth. Right?
Okay.
This is basically...
Okay. I'm on board now. I thought this was each player doing the stuff all the time, just cards everywhere for everyone.
View this at the end of both players' turns. You draw 2 cards.
I
That's
just
basically
draw
what it is,
cards.
right?
Okay.
It's slightly different because there's the end and the start and triggers and whatever. It doesn't matter.
So you're guaranteed 2, right? Because you get the end of turn for you and the start of turn for them. If
Correct.
they don't kill it, you'll get the end of their turn and start of yours. So if they don't kill it, you get 4 before your next turn, right?
Correct. And then if you don't kill it on your turn, then you get 6, and it gets out of hand really fast. It's a lot of cards if it doesn't die.
Right. Okay. So
Like
it just keeps going. Okay.
Yes. So again, we're talking about neutral card draw. This is a neutral card draw card. It has some very clear compromises and trade-offs. First of all, you're not playing this in your aggro deck. You're probably playing Voracious Reader if you even want to play that. And if you play this in your aggro deck, like, it can be okay if you have a ton of burn, but if you're drawing a bunch of cheap minions, then that's not usually going to be good enough for playing the 6 mana 4/5. If you're playing an attrition-based control deck, you cannot play this because you will fatigue out and defeat the entire purpose of your deck. This is a card you play if your deck has something you're looking for in the end game. Like, say, for example, I don't know, pieces to complete your quest line.
Shard?
Right. Or your 7 and your 8s.
Yeah.
And your for your shard. This is questline support because you're going to churn through your deck so fast and find those non-redundant pieces that you need to finish your quest. Or you can just work towards a combo or whatever. This expansion's Lorekeeper Polkelt, and that is a total like combo enabler or late game do my thing enabler. And your opponent either has to kill it or has to commit to leaving it up, and then you have to commit to playing all your stuff as quickly as possible. And it's interesting. There's some push and pull there, and I really like how it looks and how I think it's going to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like the deck that this kind of goes in and enables, right? Because you talked earlier on about how a lot of the things that we're seeing are do something cool later. That's kind of seems to be the theme of the reveals that we've seen so far anyways, is like, you know, do some stuff early, but, you know, to set up this crazy later thing. And in past Hearthstone expansions, a lot of the stuff that has taken a really long time to get to usually lasts for the first day or two, and then they're overrun by things that are just faster, right? So you don't often get to do the crazy fun later thing in Hearthstone. Sometimes you do, but it takes a very slow meta to actually get there. So if you're going to give a lot of cool later things to do, you need to also give people a way to get there before your opponent closes out the game just by playing quicker than you. And so I think this card, Cornelius Rome, supports that in a really good way that's going to let you get there really fast and make your opponent make the choice of like, okay, do I leave this up? And he's still a 4/5, right? So it's not an insignificant amount of attack. Like, this is going to also help me close out the game just by hitting you in the face for 4 over and over again. But it's those decision points and options, like we were saying earlier as well, where this gives not only you a choice, but your opponent a choice. Like, do you trade in? Have you drawn enough that you can afford to use this to control a little bit now? Or, you know, like, you want to stop drawing cards because, oh my God, you're going to fatigue. Like, there's important decisions on both sides of the board with this card, I think, and a lot of interesting push and pull. So yeah, like, I really like this card design, and I like that it enables super crazy late game shenanigans, because the last card that we're going to talk about, oh my God, the shenanigans. So the first words that are going to come out of my mouth, you're going to be like, Joce, why are you even talking about this? Why are we so excited? This seems crazy. Okay, there is a 1-mana 1/1 neutral epic minion called the Elwyn Boar. If you guys have played World of Warcraft, you're probably like, Joce, what's so crazy about Elwyn Boars? Because, you know, they're just boars. They're everywhere. Well, that's the point. They're going to be everywhere because the Elwyn Boar has a death rattle that says if you had 7 Elwyn Boars die this game, equip a 15/3. Yes, I did say 15/3 Sword of 1,000 Truths. So I don't actually know. I'm going to try this on the fly. Can I like click on this and find the sword? Oh, it doesn't have the sword. Okay, it didn't work. I'm going back. Apparently I must log in to do that.
I get this. Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, so it is a 15/3 weapon. So the Sword of 1,000 Truths. It's a 10-mana weapon. So again, it's one of those big, huge, crazy, like do a thing later cards. And it says, after your hero attacks, destroy your opponent's mana crystals. So you can attack for 15 damage, and then your opponent gets a mana crystal next turn? Like, what can you do with that?
It causes 120 mana burn per second, in fact.
Yeah, like, oh my God.
So, for those of you that are unfamiliar, there's a South Park episode, Make Love Not Warcraft, Season 10, Episode 8. It won an Emmy. It was a collaboration between South Park and Blizzard, and it takes place inside Classic WoW. Like, it's set in Classic WoW, and is a really, really hilarious episode. Very, very well written. And it references how the main characters, the 4 boys, they're being griefed by a high-level player, and in order to level up, they have to farm boars. 65 million of them, roughly. I'm rounding. I don't have the number written down off the top of my head.
But it was like a bajillion.
It was a lot. And the Sword of 1,000 Truths is a very, specific item in the episode, which I watched before today's show. And let me tell you, it still holds up just as well. The entire Hearthstone social community lost their minds over this card today.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Such a fun design, such a wonderful throwback. And actually, Joce, I was able to get a pretty special extra little thing that I haven't seen on Twitter yet. I got a clip of the sound it plays when you attack with the Sword of 1,000 Truths. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, I do.
All right. It doesn't actually make that sound.
You're gonna get me kicked off Twitch.
It's okay. They'll never know. The strikes aren't permanent anymore. It's okay. We talked about this.
But yeah, so again, if you guys aren't fans of South Park, you're probably like, WTF is going on right now. But trust me, that was a hilarious bit. Honestly, and this sword looks really cool. It's like, I want this transmog in WoW, honestly. It is Death Knight is all get out, as Garrett would say. And like, I love this. So the boar that this comes from is a neutral minion. So that means anyone can make a Sword of 1,000 Truths deck, which means I am going to make all of the Sword of 1,000 Truths decks. I am really excited to just try to make this work in every stupid, crazy way. And of course, because I think this is where angry Hearthstone internet's mind is at right now, but they were like, we're going to see Boar Priest. This is going to be Priest. Priest is the only one that can do it. I'm like, I'm sure there's other ways to do it other than just priests. And I'm going to try. It will be my epic quest.
And there's a card in Standard, actually, that helps you put this together in any class. It's also neutral. You remember Terran, right? Yeah. Terran Boar Fiend. Josh, you're not laughing. I assume you don't get it. See, it's Terran Gorefiend is his name, but Gore and Boar rhyme, and then you can eat a bunch of boars and make it again.
True. And make them again. Yeah. So yeah, this is it's just crazy. And I mean, the boar art is just so ridiculous. And yeah, I'm gonna play around a lot with this card. It's gonna be super fun. I really hope it works. I hope, like, it much like the purified shard that we talked about in Priest earlier, like, it's just gonna be shenanigans. It's gonna be fun when it happens. Like, what a reward. Like, this is crazy. It's like you could just hit your opponent in the face for 45 and they can't do anything about it, because every time you're taking away their mana crystals, like, it's one of those things that once you play this, I mean, I bet no one's even gonna be able to attack with it. Like, people are just gonna concede.
I think you have to, if you're all right. Angry chickeners, it's chicken. What do we call our listeners? Do we have a term?
Cluckers.
We all have to make a pact. You let them hit you with the sword once.
Yes.
You let them hit you once. One time. You can concede after the first time. You have to let them hit you. But also, this card is just fun. You can tell they had a fun time designing it. The South Park episode came out in 2006. It was a huge hit at the time. Everyone
was
at
it
Blizzard
that long
loved it.
ago? Oh my god.
2006. 15 years.
I am
and
old.
So this is also a classic WoW meme and reference just as much as the mailbox dancer or anything else we've seen. This is a mark of the love for the old game and the new game that we are seeing in this set. And I could not think of a more fitting way to show how much whimsy and fun there is here. Love the design, and everybody that understood this reference had a grand old time today. And like, I don't think this is going to be competitively viable. I don't care. I don't want it to be. I don't need it to be. I want this to be in the game because it makes me a happier person.
Celestalon is confirming in the chat room that there are reasonable combo ideas in Priest, Hunter, Rogue, and Druid. Probably doable in others. I will find the others. Don't you worry. If they exist, I will play them. So yeah, I think that's actually, I mean, finally 2+ hours in. Woo. Hat, we made it. We did it. And we only had like 20 cards maybe? I don't even think it was that many. Like, yeah, next week is going to be nuts. I'm glad that we decided to take a couple of days off and wait for some of these cards to come out so that we could actually, talk about some stuff and not get super overloaded next week, though it is still going to be a really heavy show. But yeah, overall, how are you feeling about the expansion?
I want it.
Now,
give it to me now.
You just want it now? Yeah, that's fair.
I like the vibes I get from the cards they've revealed are great, and today especially, the cards today were fun and powerful and interesting and just talked about ever I've seen. People have been going off about him all day. Really, really thrilled that reveal season is finally here.
Yay! It feels like we had to wait really long and now it's all smooshed together. But you know what? I actually like this. I like the smoosh down. I know Garrett hates it, but I love it. I like the short release window. It's so exciting. And chat room's yelling at us right now because there's another card that's come out. So you know what? You guys are just going to have to wait till next week. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to wait.
It's a good one too. It's the Paladin quest line, but we can't do that without Garrett. Can't.
No, come on, guys. You want us to talk about Paladin without Garrett? Whew. It's like you want me to get fired from the show. Jeez. So that is going to do it for this episode of The Angry Chicken. We are supported by our epic patrons over at patreon.com/tack. Again, as I mentioned off the top of the show, becoming a patron gives you access to the Discord, and we are past the taco goal, so we're going to be doing that sometime very, very soon. Also, I mentioned it off the top of the show, but in case you guys weren't here right at the beginning, we are doing a giveaway as well. We have 5 United in Stormwind Standard Pre-Purchase Bundles that have been provided to us from Blizzard. So if you guys are interested in winning one of those, you can go to bit.ly/mailboxchicken to enter. You're probably already doing a lot of things that are on that list. You can follow Hat over on Twitter. Wait, he's over there. Hat over on Twitter. As well as, following on Twitch. I see you guys live. I know you're already doing it. So yeah, there's lots of ways to enter. Go check it out. Again, bit.ly/mailboxchicken. We will be doing the draw on Sunday and announcing them on our show next week, which will be Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern over on twitch.tv/amovetv. So do go and check that out. Thank you very much to our Patreon producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, and Jeffrey D. The back catalog of Angry Chicken can be found over on amove.tv and at youtube.com/amovetv. Don't forget to follow the show over on Twitter. We are at TAC Podcast. Hat, where can folks find you on the internets?
As mentioned about 17 times this episode, twitter.com/ridiculoushat. Follow me and then go to gleam.io, do the thing. But also, you can find me in the other shows that I do. Coin Conceit, we just had our 300th episode. Yay. Thanks, Blizzard, for helping us out there and getting some Ben Lee time in, some quality time. Coinconceit.com. And then Vicious Syndicate, vicioussyndicate.com, where we take a data-driven look at the standard metagame. So, yeah, I talk about Hearthstone a bunch.
You do. You talk about Hearthstone a lot. Have I ever told you how grateful I am that you decided to also come here and talk to us about Hearthstone, even though you already do it in many, many other places?
You have mentioned it, but I like hearing it. It's nice. Thank you.
You are very, very welcome. Guys, you can go and follow Garrett at Garrett Art. You can also check out nomoonart.com for all of his stream designs. And you can check out amove.tv for his other podcasts, including Into the Nexus. Let's talk about Star Wars. And, not WoW Killer anymore, guys. I'm sorry. But he is on the Instance. If you guys want to hear him talk about MMOs, you can do that over there. You can follow me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joce Plays. That's JOCE Plays. And if you want to hear all of my thoughts about Skyward Sword, you can do that by checking out The Gamers Inn, which is my general gaming podcast. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you guys so much for listening. So until next time, job's done.
Job's done.